All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Um, Tonight, I actually had another topic in mind, but with some things that have happened recently and watching national and local news, violence is on the crime on the increase right now nationwide. And just wanted to have a conversation tonight with a few people as we discuss violence in our community and ask ourselves, are we at some point or another responsible for the crime that we see? If you look at statistics right now, crime is off the chain, basically in all age categories. But I've noticed that there is an increase in crime in what like to call the 15 to 25 degree age bracket. So tonight we're going to have a conversation with a few educators, and we're going to see if we can get to the root of the problem. So go ahead, invite a few people, share your screen with a few people, and let's get the conversation started. All right. Once again, want to welcome everybody to tonight's show. My name is Ken Lawrence. Welcome everybody to Conversations with Ken Lawrence. Before we get into the conversation, guys, want to get a little bit of housekeeping out of the way. For those of you who have not subscribed to the channel, now would be a great time to do so. We absolutely would appreciate it. Also, go ahead and share this video with anybody that you think may enjoy the content. And last but not least, go ahead and give us a like for the YouTube algorithm so that we can get this message out to more people. We have a lot of great content coming up in the next couple of weeks, and I definitely want everybody to come in and be a part of what we have going on. So, guys, just to give you a few statistics that I checked out before we got going today, since we're talking about violent crime in our communities, nationwide right now, homicides are up about 30%. Aggravated assaults are up 19%, and violent crime overall is up 17%. The alarming part about that is when they talk about violent crime, they don't include like mass shootings. And we know there have been a lot of mass shootings throughout the country right now. Looking at the statistics of where the higher crime areas are, most of them, unfortunately, are in the South. You have Baton Rouge, which is number 8. New Orleans is number 6. Memphis is number 4. And Birmingham, Alabama is number 2. So a lot of the crime has been concentrated into the South. So right now I'm going to go ahead and add my panel to the stream, and we can go ahead and get our conversation started. Good evening, everyone. How's everybody doing?
Pretty good. Good evening.
Good
Great,
evening.
great. So one by one, start Mr. Minor. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Let us know where you are and your profession.
Good evening. My name is Larry Miner. I am in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I'm an educational consultant.
Awesome. Ms. Andrews.
Hi, my name is Angela Andrews. I am a mental health professional and I'm an early steps coordinator.
Awesome. And Ms. Bousley, I want to make sure I pronounce your name correctly.
Veleka I am a behavior interventionist for Faraday High. I am from St. Joseph, Louisiana.
Okay, awesome, awesome. And we may actually have a few more panelists that may join the conversation as we get going. So if they do, I'll get them to introduce themselves as we get going. So for those of you who are watching us either on Facebook or on YouTube, go ahead and leave your city and state in the comment section. Let us know where you guys are viewing from, and feel free to add any content as we go along. So guys, um, tough conversation tonight. Very tough conversation, but I think it's one that absolutely needs to be had in all the communities that we are in. I know Mr. Minor is here in Baton Rouge, D'Angelo right there across the state line in Woodville,
No,
and
St. Francisville.
same thing. You from Woodville.
But I'm from Woodville. Yes.
but even that's the funny part about it. But even with St. Francisville, the statistics for St. Francisville and Woodville are about the same, population and crime wise too. And that Concordia Parish, Tensaw Parish area, a lot of the same demographics you'll find like in Wilkinson County and West Feliciana Parish. Crime is up everywhere. We talked about this before we got on, that at one time we could say that crime was isolated to large cities and metropolitan areas, but now it's happening literally everywhere. So I'll ask you guys the first question that we have for the panel tonight. And all of you are in the schools or have some connection to the schools. Do you see kids being more aggressive now in schools than they were like back when we were in school? And we'll start with Mr. Minor.
Uh, Being honest, no, I don't see kids being any more aggressive in schools today than when we were in schools. When we were in schools, they when I was in school, they started zero tolerance, which tells you what was occurring in schools. There were fights all the time, especially at the beginning of school years. There were always big fights between various neighborhoods. We don't even really have that anymore because kids are dispersed to different schools. They have choice. So kids in a lot of different neighborhoods go to a lot of different schools. So they're all kind of meshed together at this point. You don't have those same rivalries as much anymore. So I don't see a big difference as far as the violence goes in schools.
All right, Ms. Andrews, same question. Do you think that kids now are more aggressive than they were when we were in school?
I want to say yes. Um, because I know when I was in school, we did have the um territorial fights or whatever, like the Centerville against Woodville and all of that. But I think more now, I think they are a little bit more aggressive than then because it's happening a lot now. And back then, I don't think it was happening as much. It usually took place maybe at games or, like sporting events or something like that, but it didn't always occur at school during school time.
Right.
So I'm thinking they're more aggressive now because there is happening more at school.
All right, Ms. Veleka, do you think that kids nowadays are more aggressive than they were back when we were in school? I think she may be having some Wi-Fi issues. All right, and one of our additional panelists has just joined. How's it going, classmate? Classmate probably can't even hear me. Shamika, can you hear me?
Hey, how are you?
I think
Doing
we're
great. How
all
are
maybe
you?
having some internet issues
Can you hear
tonight for
me?
some reason.
I can. Can you hear me?
Uh-huh. Can you hear me?
I can. Welcome to the call.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
It's a big delay, it
Okay.
seems like.
Thank you.
So introduce yourself for the audience. Let them know who you are and what your job title is.
My name is Shamika Lacey Rankin. I am actually a native of Woodville, Mississippi, but I live in Natchez, Mississippi. I am a school administrator in Natchez Adams School District. I'm currently the virtual school principal, but I'm also supporting at an elementary school here as well. Most of my experience has been secondary, worked in high schools and alternative schools. So I'm well-rounded with experience at all levels.
All right, awesome. You came in at the right time. We were just asking the panelists our first question, and that question was, do you think that children today are more aggressive than they were when we were in school?
Yes, indeed. Yes, they are. Um, I mean, right now we're working at an elementary school. I'm seeing the aggressiveness there. I thought that, working at a middle school was a culture shock, being that most of my experience was high school, coming down. But I'm seeing that it starts in late elementary. So yes, yes, very much so. They are very aggressive now than they were in the past.
Yeah, I'm not in the school district. I do own a couple businesses where we are inside the schools quite a bit. I have a lot of friends that are teachers, and the overwhelming response that I hear right now is that the kids have become more aggressive. You hear that a lot of teachers are saying that they are not able to control the kids anymore, and I know firsthand that it has gotten harder. You find a lot of the kids now are unruly. A lot of them don't listen. So being a teacher now, in my opinion, and like I said, I don't claim to be a teacher or be in the classroom, but to me, it seems like it has gotten a lot more difficult to handle the kids. So question number 2 is, do you think that economics play a role in the uptick in violence that we're seeing? And I'll start with Mr. Minor again.
So you're asking economics as a whole play a role in the violence we're seeing in schools or in the community?
In the community.
In the community, it definitely does. I mean, when you look at socioeconomic factors, the cultures and values of people are different along socioeconomic lines. I'm not going to say, I know there are some other people who continuously preach, if we get these people jobs, then they'll stop doing this. Not necessarily. There's a culture built. So when I was a child, who did I see? New Jack City, and I saw Nino Brown. So we thought Nino Brown was the coolest person in the world. So even if I got a job, I want to go flip keys like Nino and get this big money and have all the women and buy me a Mercedes, Right. So that's totally different. So it's being glamorized, and then I would say it's all in the various sources of media that people are taking in. So in a lot of cases, what you're taking in is what is going to be your output. So the music they listen to, what they see on social media, which is readily available, I think that all adds into what we're seeing today. But I think socioeconomic factors do definitely play a role because of the cultures and values of people. And I would say the access to probably seeing things that are more positive are a little bit different. I think they have a lot more access than we did in the past. All we have is encyclopedias where they have the World Wide Web and everything else around them. But I definitely do think that it plays a huge role in what's going on today.
Yeah, that was the perfect segue, because I was going to ask that question to you as a follow-up. If we thought that a lot of the images that we see in movies and TV and a lot of the things that we hear in music, if those things actually factor into it. I actually was talking about that a little bit earlier today about how, parenting to some degree has become more difficult, because we could use, back when we were kids, it was easy to control what we brought into our into our households, because we control the televisions. For the most part on TV, you didn't see a lot of violence, you didn't see a whole lot of profanity, you didn't see any sex at all. But now on mainstream television, you see all of it. Not to mention that kids are getting cell phones earlier and earlier. They have cell phones 9 times out of 10. They have data programs on those phones. If not, they can get Wi-Fi when they're at school or when they're at restaurants. So it becomes even harder for us to actually control what we allow our kids to see. And even from a parenting perspective, I know, the things that our parents and grandparents tolerated, a lot of parents now have become a lot more laxed in those areas. So absolutely, I think all that factors in. Shamika, what do you think? Do you think economics play a role in the upticks in violence that we're seeing?
Yes, I think that a lot of kids pretty much, when it comes to easy access, they want something for nothing. So with them going out there, with the violence and everything like that. Um, it's basically, with them, it's the image. They want to keep up with everyone else and want to keep up with their image, but yet they don't have it. So it's all about portraying this image that that's let's see how I want to put it. What they don't have, they have to make up for it in another way. Put it like that.
Yeah.
They want to make it seem like, hey, I'm this big person out of the community. I'm known for this and known for that. So yeah, I say, they pretty much have to compensate in other areas, basically.
I agree. Ms. Andrews, do you think that economics play a role in the violence that we're seeing right now? I think everybody's having Wi-Fi issues. Let's see.
Well, until they come back in, what you were saying about parenting, you have to look at too that parents are much younger. We're looking at parents who are pretty much growing up with their kids. They're listening. Some of them listen to the same music, doing the same things. So that's what we're fighting as well. Especially with being a school administrator, we're looking at things that we value, and that our parents value, that some of the parents now don't. So,
Yep.
when it comes to things that can be controlled or whatever, I'm gonna speak from my household as a parent. Even though, my daughter has access to these different things, as a parent, I still have rules. I still have, if I say that you're not doing this, not doing that, do whatever, and she knows my expectations, she know that she's not gonna go out this door and act like, she wasn't raised by someone who had structure or come from a structured household.
Yeah, and that whole parenting piece too is vitally important because we talk about we jump back into the school part right now. We know we said we weren't going to talk about just the schools, but just looking from the school perspective, if you have parents who may not necessarily come from wealth backgrounds where finances are stressed and things like that, um it puts a strain on the kids. A lot of the parents may have multiple jobs. You got kids that having to raise or look after younger siblings and things like that. Parents not being home to help with the homework and things like that. A lot of kids come to school and don't succeed academically, and they feel like that acting out part can be their way of getting additional attention. So a lot of that goes into it, not just the dollars and cents aspect of it, but just the lack of attention, the lack of structure, as Shamika talked about. Mr. Minor talking about when we were young about watching movies and things like that. But man, to be honest with you, Mr. Minor, I'm 40. I think I'm 43. I'm something like that. But it's a lot of movies that were going when we were younger that even at 43 I've never seen before. I've never seen Juice from beginning to end because when I was young, man, you wasn't watching that in my household. Um, I didn't see Boys in the Hood until I was able to get out on my own and watch stuff like that. So those movies, man, my grandmother was real about that. You were not watching that crap in our house because she knew what the images were. And now it's a lot worse now than it was back then because, like I say, back then you had to have VHS because I'm from the country. We didn't have cable. So you had to have VHS. We didn't have a lot of money. So the only way that you would see it, you had to get money from them to go to the local movie store to rent the VHS to come home and watch the VCR in the living room because you didn't have but one and you weren't watching that crap straight up. So back then it was, I mean, the parenting was much more structured. Like I said, the loopholes for doing things were a lot less. So I think from that perspective, parenting has just gotten a lot harder. I mean, we're having Wi-Fi issues left and freaking right. All right, question number 3. We're gonna build this thing while we fly it. Um, do you think that there's a connection between um the diminishing nuclear family and violence. And I'll add a little backstory to this. Right now, you don't really find a lot of two-parent households, not nearly as many as you used to. Um, you find many more single-parent households. Do you guys think that having single-parent households affects the discipline and the conduct of kids that we see going out into the community and committing crimes now? Mr. Minor.
I think it has a definite impact if you don't have two parents in the household. Uh, having a mother and father together, they support one another in nurturing the growth of that child. And then as well, I would say, and not necessarily saying a man is always there to enforce. It may be the mother that enforces, but depending on the personality of the individuals, there's always, someone there that's going to ensure that this child does everything they're supposed to do. Whereas if it's one person, you have one person going to work, paying bills, focus on a lot of other things, and they might not be able to focus as much attention and detail to what their children are doing. Whereas if it's two people, then we can kind of split roles, split tasks, and it overburdens one person and probably causes a lot of stress and frustration as far as what's going on in their lives, depending on how many kids they have. So I would say, yes, it does.
100% agree. Ms. Andrews, do you think that the diminishing nuclear family is having an effect on the violence that we see that's being brought out now by a lot of our youth?
I'm gonna say yes and no, because I'm back to the structure thing. I mean, it depends because we have a lot of single parent households, and I feel like, if your kids know what you expect, I mean, it's not a problem because I'm a single parent and I have two children, and my children know what I will accept and what I will not accept. So, I mean, they know I have rules, and they know that if you break the rule, then there's consequences. So, I'm a firm believer that it's about structure, regardless of if you have two parents or one. What when you tell your kids what you expect, and hey, that's it. Either you follow the rules, or hey, it's consequences behind it. And hey, I mean, having two parents is always better because it lightens the load off of one. I mean, especially when it's a balance. But I'm not gonna say that's the main reason, for the violence or anything that goes on, because I mean, my kids know I'm not accepting that, or you're not gonna act out, especially when you know what I do as your mother. I mean, I work with behavior kids, and I mean, how are my children going to go to school and act out or be out there in the community with violence and doing all these things? And when I'm in here trying to teach somebody else's kids how to act or behave, and my own children doing it. So, I mean, I don't think that's a big, plays a big role in it. But I mean, it's always good to have two parents. But just like I said, they know what I expect. So if the parents do more of, hey, this is what I expect, and this is what you're gonna do, and be that strict parent, not where you not letting them do anything, but hey, I'm not gonna accept anything, and they need more of that.
Yeah. Ms. Veleka, can you hear me? she goes away. Felicia, are you there?
Yes, I am. How you doing?
Doing great. How are you? Introduce yourself to everyone.
I'm doing. I'm doing.
I guess we need to just be in one spot. Everybody in one spot with the same Wi-Fi to get this thing through the night. Shamika, what do you think? Do you think that the diminishing nuclear family is the one culprit for a lot of things that we see going on with violence when it comes to our youth?
And I guess after hearing Ms. Andrews' answer, I would have to, agree with her. It's like a yes and a no type deal, but it depends on the situation. I'm one who still believes that it takes the village. It still takes the village, when it comes to kids. But in the society that we live in now, the neighbor can't say anything, to the kid about what's right and wrong. Whereas in the past, a neighbor was almost like a parent, if they saw you in the street doing something wrong, and, being able to instill different things. A neighbor could have taken you to Sunday school, but now, you have to be aware of crossing lines when it comes to dealing with other people's kids. So when it comes to the nuclear family, it's all about the structures, like I mentioned before, the structures that you put in place, how much attention that you show to this child, whether it's a single parent household or whether both parents are in the household. Yes, it is a better structure if you have both, especially when they're on the same accord when it comes to um, raising kids and instilling morals and expectations and everything like that. So um, it depends, on the structure. It depends on the parent. It depends on, you know, the background altogether.
Yeah, I agree. I was raised by a single mom, but the thing that I think that made my experience a lot better than most people was that, as you talk about, I was raised by the community too. My mom, my grandmother, my aunt, and my cousin, all ladies, were all there in my life. So there wasn't just one voice. You heard four voices. The structure was there because each of those people basically had the same moral code, and they knew that going out in the community, and as they would say, putting shame on our last name was not something that was even an option. um and then it got to a point to where, me personally, man, I saw, the struggles that they were going through to provide for me. And me just being the kid that I was, I didn't want to bring any additional stress to the household. So I mean, going to school, not getting the grades, getting in, becoming a discipline problem, being out in the community, and having law enforcement in my life. I mean, all of that was things that I thought about when I went out there, and just did not want to add any additional stress to what it was that my family was already having to deal with. And it's amazing that now, when I was a kid, I thought that we were doing pretty well. I thought that we were, an average family when it came to finances and things like that. But now that I got opportunity to look back at where we were, and what they were doing and the income that they brought in, it makes me appreciate it even more, because now I realize that, they were literally getting money and stretching it and making it seem like that we had everything that we needed and most of the things that we wanted, even though, finances at times could have been strained. So, I appreciate more so now than ever, the things that the community and my nest did for me to get me back to where I am. Let's try this again. Miss Veleka, can you hear me? Are you there? I guess not. All right, so we are going to go ahead and move on to our next question. For those of you who are joining the screen tonight, we appreciate you guys. Like I say, continue to drop your city and state, letting me know where you guys are calling in from. If you have any questions for the panel, please put those questions in the comment, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity to have them to answer those questions as well. Question number 4 is, what are some of the remedies that we can implement to regain our communities back? Right now, regardless of the community size, regardless of where you live, most people now are actually afraid to walk their neighborhoods at night. Most people are afraid to even sit on their porches at night. Um, it's gotten that bad. So, what are some of the remedies that you think that we can implement to start to slowly get our communities back? Mr. Minor, we'll start with you.
So I'll probably say it has to be a more of a holistic approach to education. I've said this in the past, but using schools as a hub of educating the community, providing education programs for parents to come into the schools. I think that's one of the biggest issues now. Something I've seen has changed over my 15 years in education. Initially, when I started off, the parents were a little bit different. They were more supportive of the teachers and administrators. And now you have a group of parents, who want to come to the school and fight. And anything that child says, they believe. And I think some of the teachers will follow suit, whereas you want to come to the school and fight, I will fight you. So it's a little bit different. Now the culture has changed. I think that, so parent education is one big aspect of it. I think as well, a lot of kids probably act out in school because they feel less competent or not being on grade level. So starting off early, prior to kids entering school, with attacking the learning gap, especially in those areas, where, all right, I know in this part of Baton Rouge, These kids come into school behind grade level. They come into pre-K not knowing the alphabets. So let's implement programs in these areas where these kids are learning their alphabets and their numbers before they even get into school, because we know it's a problem. The issue is they get into school and now we're trying to play catch up when you know that's a problem already. And you have these various programs that occur before people come into school, but there's no level of accountability. I just feel like everything is reactive when we have all this research that highlights what's going on. So you have the research, attack the specific issues, like be more intentional in what they're doing. But I think educating all individuals as a whole, but also following up with them. So it can't just be one event and then we all go home. It has to be continuous, like something every couple of weeks or something every week, where these people are coming in, we're educating them, we're working with them in the community, and we're attacking those specific problems that lead to violence. So if we're attacking educational issues with kids, then we're putting them on the right path as far as school goes, to where they know I'm not 2 or 3 years behind, there is no hope. And then if we're educating their parents and providing opportunities for them, then those parents are more active in their roles with their kids, and they're probably more mature and more knowledgeable in the way that they're working with their kids and speaking and talking to their kids.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you next. Do you think that it would be, an asset if there were different types of programs in the community for the parents as well? Because I think Shamika hit on that earlier. Maybe it was D'Angela that talked about, the age of the typical parent now has dropped so much, and a lot of the parents didn't get a lot of the structure that they needed when they were growing up, as far as trying to help kids with homework and stuff like that. Not trying to be funny about it, but a lot of the parents are not equipped to help kids with homework. And I made a post about that on Facebook when COVID first started, that there were a lot of parents that told their kids how smart they were when they was in school. And now that the parents actually had to be the teachers, like Maury Povich said, the kids found out that was a lie. You wasn't as smart as you said you were. So I do believe that to some degree we could find, some type of way that we could get the parents the support that they needed. And a lot of people think support is always a financial thing, but sometimes support, can just be putting them in a position to win. It could be, giving them the education, giving them the resources, or helping parents get GEDs, because I do believe that you have a lot of parents that kind of have lost hope. They haven't done anything substantial in quite some time. They haven't had a big win. So something as simple as, being able to get that GED and to show the kid that, hey, we're in this thing together when it comes to education, can be something that they can do that can, kind of bridge the gap or give them a little bit more ammunition when it comes to getting the kids back in line. Shamika, what do you think? What do you think that some of the things that we can do to try to regain our communities?
I agree with a lot that Mr. Minor said. But just to, Ken, you made me think about a situation that I recently had with a parent. We still offer virtual here, but it's for students who are in chronic illness situations. Well, a situation where the child was granted virtual, but the parent does not make the child get on virtual. So, and I required the child to report back to school, but the parent don't want the child to come back to school. So it's like, I'm lost. This is a kid who's missing out on his, on her education because she's not getting on virtual. And then you don't want her to come back to school. Help me to understand where that makes sense. But, when it comes to regaining the community, it's going to take everyone in the community. It's going to take the law enforcement officers. It's going to take the churches. It's going to take the schools. It's like, like Mr. Martin said, it's going to take everybody coming in together to bridge those gaps and to provide that education to parents, to bring some structure to, to the community, to keep from having all this violence taking place.
Yeah. And I think, especially when it comes to the youth, man, I really believe that, there is no one size fits all answer for everybody. But I do think that a lot of what we see right now, I think it comes from divisiveness too. That especially like in our community, if you hear parents, and let's be honest about it, our community was unique. You have 3 communities that are going to one school. When we were in school, it was kind of new. You know, that we were used to being, everybody was used to being in their own community going to school. But now the kids don't know any different. The kids don't know anything about the schools being separate. So when you hear a kid from, let's just say, Wilkinson County, from Woodville, saying they, you know, they want to fight a kid from Centerville, nobody brings that to the forefront but the parents, because the kids don't know anything but that situation. I know Mr. Minor was saying, you know, in Baton Rouge is a little bit different now, because with some of the schools, you have kids that are being bused from different parts of the parish going to the school. So, you know, the neighborhood beef that you hear so much about in most areas, you don't find that in Baton Rouge. But the crime is still off the chart. So, you know, there has to be, you know, um, something that has to be done. I know it's not a, like I said, not a one size fits all answer, but I think it is something that needs to be talked about. Ms. Andrews, do you think? Well, what do you think that we can do to regain our communities back?
Everything that Mr. Minor and Shamika said, I actually have these answers written down on my yellow notepad, and they did everything that I actually had written down. So I was like, okay, well, I was right with all this then. But I so agree with everything that they said, and I just want to just say it's with all of that, but it's also going to take parents really, you know, being in tune and communicating with their children, and, you know, being involved, because I've had several meetings where, you know, parents are invited to come to do different things, and I may have had 2 or 3 parents to show up, or if any at all. So it needs to be more of a parental thing where they you know, be more involved. When we were in school, you know, parents were more involved than they are now. So along with all of that, I just feel it's going to take them communicating with the children, the schools, and don't be afraid to ask for help if you need help. I mean, don't have too much pride to say, well, I don't know. I mean, ask for help. I mean, they're just like you said before in one of the other questions, there are many resources out there. And what part of my role is to offer resources. So if it's anything that you need, I mean, feel free to ask. And that's a lot of the problems. We have too much pride to ask for help when we need help. And so, hey, y'all hit the nail on the head. Everything that I had written down, y'all hit it. So I agree.
Yeah, to me, you know, the success of the child should come before, you know, any type of pride. And another thing that I see is, let's be honest, man, most teachers in most schools don't have all the resources that they need. You know, so, you know, as a community, we have to come together and do some things to try to help our schools out too. I know that public schools, you know, we believe, most of us believe that if it's a school where the tax dollars are paying for the school, that everything should be free. But with the economy being the way it is right now, it's going to come a point in time to where the community is going to have to start investing more money into the schools. We may have to start going into the schools and volunteering. Mr. Minor may know more about this than I did, but I know when I first moved down here, they had the security dad program at Glen Oaks High School, where they had the dads walking up and down the halls there with the t-shirts on.
Hello?
And, you know, for the most part, a
Hello?
lot of the schools don't necessarily have a lot of males inside the schools. So that definitely helps to have, you know, the influx of 5 to 10 guys there on a daily basis that can help with things as far as, you know, walking kids from class A to class B to make sure that nothing happens, or if there is something that happens, you now have an increased male presence and a parental presence on campus that can help inside the schools. Mr. Minor, were you familiar with that program?
Yes, I was. I mentored kids at Glen Oaks High, so I was familiar with the Security Dads program.
Helped out a whole lot, didn't it?
It did, but I would say they needed all the help they can get, because even with the Security Dads, they had a lot of problems.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I mean, the Security Dads helped with culture. Like, it was good as far as the culture, but there were a lot of behavior problems there during that time that I was mentoring kids.
Just seeing men there in the community coming in as a whole and showing that they cared, you know, actually did help a little bit, right?
Yeah, it helps some. Yeah, it helps
Ooh.
some, but I would say the security dads, they didn't reach the kids that really needed to be reached because those kids didn't see them as cool, right? So
Right.
kids that really needed that, they looked at the security dads as somebody dad walking around the school, not someone that used to be that had a certain background and can speak to them and say, hey, I did the same stuff you're doing right now. These are the things that happened to me, and this is what helped turn my life around. But I mean, they were there, like they would barbecue, they would walk the halls, things like that. So it built more of a familiar culture at the school. But there were still some of those kids who needed, a little bit extra, I would say, from
Yeah.
people who had that same background. And not to say those guys didn't have the same background, but they viewed them as the security dads.
Yeah. I know when we were in school, and I don't even know if this was legal or not, but I know when we were in school, they would take some of our more problematic kids like on field trips to the prisons to let them see, what they would be in store for when, if they were to misbehave on a large level. I don't even know if schools still do things like that, but I would imagine now that even if they did, that you have a large segment of parents that probably wouldn't even sign permission forms to allow kids to do things like that because, it seems like that a lot of parents now want to be their kids' friends. And I think, when we're talking about things that we can do to regain our community, I think that should be number one. That there are a lot of parents right now that know that their kids are doing things that they should not be doing. You know that your kids are out there committing crimes in the community, and you're harboring them. You're not willing to contact law enforcement to say, "Hey, look, little Johnny did this. Y'all need to come get him," and things like that. And you harbor them. So now the kid that already had bad intentions feels that he can go out in the community, do what he wants to do, and then come home and hide behind his parent, and there's not going to be any consequences behind it. I also think that we need to reform the juvenile courts. They had a town hall meeting in my hometown last week, and Damon is not on here right now, but I wanted him to come so that he could comment about that, where they were saying that a lot of the kids that they see inside the schools that are creating havoc are saying that they will do what they want to do because they realize that there are going to be very few repercussions. They're going to take them out of school for a couple of days, but for the most part, they don't care about that because they're not very interested in being in school anyway. So there has to be a situation where kids understand that there are consequences for their misbehaving. I mean, firm, strict consequences, meaning that, once we identify that, you are that bad seed, we immediately pull you out of the school, which I don't think that's a good idea either to some degree, but you can't continue to leave troublemakers inside the schools. Teachers don't feel safe, students don't feel safe, and still expect the schools to flourish. I'm gonna try to get Felicia on one more time and see if she can pop on. Felicia, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm really enjoying this session right here. I really am. I've heard everything you guys have said. I've been knocked off a couple of times. But to add on to that, I think it's going to take the whole entire village, for our kids today. Law enforcement, local officials, teachers, pastors. I mean, everybody. Because one thing that we don't give account for that the kids that we have today during the late 80s and early 90s, we started this trend with babies having babies. So many of our kids or our young adults were raised as sisters and brothers with their parents, and then some of the kids that we have, their parents were raising them as babies. So they don't have that mentality that the parents had when we were being raised. See, we had more of a structural upbringing when it came to our parents that were in the 70s and things like that, or beyond their 50s and 60s. We had, a structural thing where if a child done something at the neighbor's house, the neighbor was able to get a hold to him, and then when they got home, they were going to get a hold to him again. But today, if something like that happened and a child do something and you chastise that child, then the parent want to come and knock your head in. So, I feed that back to that. I think we need community policing. We don't have that in our area. I mean, police would come by or whatever, but, I can recall during my time growing up, the police officer would get out the car He would walk the beat. You know, he would see what the kids were up to or what they were doing. He would sit in that area and make sure nothing went on. So we don't have community policing. We don't have that positive input as parents because we don't have any parental involvement when it comes to our kids, whether it be in the community or whether it be at the school. That's what we're definitely lacking. We need some parental involvement for our kids. And I mean, it's going to take a whole lot to turn all of that around. When it comes to our neighborhoods, I think a lot of people have kind of lost hope. I mean, because I'm from Centerville, and I mean, you can tell with that town, we don't have our schools. We only have one school operating. Our public school system closed down after it got burned down. We don't have a bank. We used to have businesses. We don't have businesses. We have like small mom and pop places. But I mean, it still can be something there because there's something that's in us that's called love. If we just love each other and help each other. I can recall the time when I was growing up as a little girl, we didn't talk about our neighbors when we didn't have no sugar. We would pass the sugar out the door. I mean, we didn't talk about the neighbors when they didn't have food to eat. We would call the neighbors over and say, hey, y'all can come have dinner with us. I mean, but today if something like that happens, we're going to talk about our people instead of reaching out a hand to help them. I also can feed off of a lot of people pride get in the way because even right here in Wilkinson County, a lot of people, there are agencies out there to help assist with education because I'm a board member for Southwest Mississippi Opportunities, and I mean, we pay for truck driving school, we pay for LPN licenses, we pay for cosmetology license, we pay for your light bill, we pay for your water bill. I mean, anything like that. I mean, we have to have a few documentations on it, but I mean, a lot of times people let their pride get in the way, and we won't ask people for the help that we need. So, I mean, that problem lies. It's gonna take a whole village. It's gonna take all of us. I mean, the pastors coming out of the church house, getting into the neighborhood, talking with the kids. You know, just like you said earlier, as I heard the young lady say, the kids with the school, you know, with the teacher, you have them on virtual for the learn, but the parents won't make them get up to get at the computer and get the education, and they're out of school. So I mean, it's biggest point is parental involvement. We have to get our parents out there, you know, and I hate to say it, we have to always give us something to eat or something to drink to get them out the house, and it shouldn't be that way because these are our kids that we are raising, and if we want something to be better with our future, we're going to have to start now because it's on the downfall. We at the low end when it comes to our kids with being the future. So we're going to work till we're 100 years old because there's nobody to pick up the pieces behind us. Our kids don't care about education because our parents are not out there pushing them towards education. Our kids don't care about getting out of high school and getting a job because our parents are not pushing them out there and raising them to go out there and get a job. You know, you don't have to get a college degree to get a job. You can get a trade. I've been on both ends of the fence. I have a trade. I have a degree. But it's up to, you know, those parents to push those kids, to motivate them in the home. It starts in the home. I'm going to go back to what we said earlier about the parents. I'm a single parent, but I also have an active parent in the home. I mean, if the father wanted to be a part of the child life, fine. We talk about it. We discuss everything before we go out because a lot of confusion comes with kids when they come from a broken home is that concept of I'm going to play this parent against the other parent, which means if the mother say something, they go to the father, and the father going to say something different. So in my household, I know although I'm single and I'm raising her, I have the father's input because he wants to be a part of life. So we're going to sit down at the table, and we're going to discuss what's best for the child. I'm not going to have the child running back and forth. That causes a conflict. That causes the kid to act out. The kids get out in the community and act out. The kids get out the schoolhouse and act out because we haven't set that boundaries together to say we're going to raise this child together. So, you know, it's on both ends of the fence with that too. It can be a good thing, positive, when you're raising when you're a single parent raising a child, and it could be also destructive because of the way that we play that role. We have to put our foot down when it comes to the kids. I mean, and we have lost them along the way, but we have to find some kind of way to dig deep and get them back. And I don't want to talk too much. I mean, but like I say, I've heard so much tonight, and it's a lot that we have to do, and we have to start now with everybody. I mean, not one person, not one group, but all of us. When when we trying to get our kids back and raise them and get them structured, we have to have that structure, and we definitely have to have the parental involvement for the grasp that concept.
You know, I listened to what you said, and I thought about something Mr. Minor said earlier about you were saying about how when we were younger, how the community was so active, and you know, versus trying to pull one another down, we tried to help each other get where we wanted to go. Mr. Mom, we were talking earlier about, the media and a lot of the songs and a lot of the things that we see on TV and in movies. But now, like in a lot of our music, man, there's this independent culture where everybody wants to be independent. Everybody wants to be, not attached or to be able to have results on their own and not need anybody's help. And I still think that, as funny as it sounds, I still think that, we're better together. I think that we can get a whole lot more accomplished when we have multiple people pooling their resources together. So as crazy as it seems, and I know right now in music, that's a very popular theme, independent this, independent that. I think people are really going to have to let the egos go, going to have to let their selfish manners go and realize that we're actually a whole lot better, a whole lot stronger when we unite and identify what our problems are and just fight for the common cause of getting things where they need to go. Every song you hear now, everybody talking about being independent. You very rarely hear, songs about unity. So that takes us to my last question for today is, do you think mental health is being emphasized enough as a solution? We talked about this before we got on the stream also, how a lot of the teachers are being asked to act in the mental health capacity. A lot of the law enforcement is being asked to act in the mental health capacity. So I'll start with Ms. Andrews, since she is the mental health professional. Bucking your eyes down there. Do you think that mental health is being emphasized enough as a solution for the violence that we see every day in our communities?
No. Mainly because when people think of or say mental health, they think, hey, you're trying to tell me I'm crazy. So mental health is not just about you being crazy. Mental health gives you options. So in a lot that, and I'm gonna say African Americans, we don't believe in therapy or things like that. So it's not being utilized. I'm out there, I hear what people say, and I know the stigma behind it. I know what it, and I've been doing it for a while, and I don't see anything wrong with it. Sometimes we need someone other than your mom or your dad or a family member to discuss something with, because this person don't know anything else about you. It's just to offer it. Not I don't want to say advice, but to give you options. That's what we always say. I'm here to give you options and a better way to handle things, or a better way of thinking about issues or whatever that you're having. I'm not here to say that you're crazy or you're wrong or you're right. I'm here to offer better options for you.
All right. Ms. Veleka, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. What do you think? Do
Finally.
you
I
I know, huh?
hope this works though. But I've seen too is that children have a diagnosis on, and they're. Can you hear me?
Kind of in and
Can
out.
you hear me?
Kind of in and out a little bit.
Hello? Can you hear me? Children have a. Or am I?
That doggone internet, man. Shamika, do you think that we are actually emphasizing mental health enough inside the schools?
We're not. And what I found with being having experience as a school counselor, um, the kids are not. I mean, we have kids that come to school dealing with adult issues.
Mm.
Some things that I've told teachers when approaching kids in the morning, I'm like, okay, don't be the trigger behind that child, and that child end up with a referral later on. Because the thing is, you can come at a child wrong, not knowing if that child had a meal the previous night, or if they actually went to sleep that night, or if they had to get up and take care or had to take care of a sibling overnight. So there are a lot of things that kids, a lot of baggage that kids have that they don't get a chance to deal with because there's no one who's there to take, to help them with that that mental health that they need. A lot of kids are stressed and depressed for various reasons. So no, they don't have an outlet. Um, and as an advocate for school counselors, they don't have a chance to do so much because education has changed. They're dealing with more other, pushing paper and other stuff instead of actually giving the students the counseling that they need, um, with different things. So no, it's not being emphasized enough. It's not, definitely not.
Mm. And
Also would
Mr.
like to
Minor,
say this. Ken, we had is a program that I used to work for where you go into the schools, and a lot of the times we couldn't do what we needed to do because of how education is set up now. We couldn't disturb certain classes and couldn't do whatever, but so that limited us and what we could do as we went into the schools. And in Louisiana, we couldn't even go into schools anymore. That was just, they just cut it out altogether. So I think that it's a good thing to have them to come in, but we could only kind of pull them in class doing classes like maybe PE or music or something like that. So a lot of the time it was kind of rough because we couldn't get the time in that we may needed to work with that child or whatever, or because of the fact that we could only pull them at a certain time, and maybe that hour that we could pull them was getting close to maybe the last hour of the day, whereas okay, where they had to leave out because they had to catch the bus or whatever. So I think if it was still a way that could be brought back into the schools, it would be really, really helpful. Because I've learned a lot since working with kids in the school. They would tell me a lot of things they wouldn't even tell their parents. And I had to
Mm-hmm.
go to the parent to let them know, hey, your child has marks on her arm. Did you notice that? She's cutting on herself. And I mean, you at home with this child every day and you're not paying attention and you don't know this. So I really feel that it's good to have mental health professionals within the school.
Yeah. Mr. Minor, every time we have around, man, I still think about, when you're talking about, the media influences, but I think we underemphasize, kids having access to social media. It's so many ways now that kids can be bullied on social media and things like that that could start causing a lot of problems too. So I'll ask the same question to you that I asked the rest of the panelists. Um, do you think that mental health is being emphasized enough in the schools?
No, I think it's emphasized more than it was in the past, but I think definitely there's more support needed. Going back to what you said, when I talked about media, that was inclusive of social media as well.
Mm-hmm.
I say social media, especially Instagram, has been a thorn in my side for the last 10 years as I've had to stop arguments, fights, all types of stuff, especially between female students because of things on Instagram. So I think social media, it does a lot of good for people as far as business and things like that, but I think it's bad. Social media is causing adults psychological issues. So if adults can't handle it, then what do you think is doing to kids?
So why do you say Instagram in particular? I'm curious as to
Because
that.
that's the one they use the most. They use
No.
TikTok, Instagram. They don't use. They have some of them have Facebook. They don't use Facebook. They use Instagram to start mess, post pictures, post stories, and say stuff about each other in their stories.
Mm, interesting. See, that was something I didn't know that. I guess the younger generation probably would gravitate more to Instagram and TikTok. I still haven't figured out TikTok yet. I don't really have any.
Yeah.
I know a lot of
Ken,
people who are in business that say that it works wonders in business. So I guess eventually I'll probably have to figure out how it works. But I mean, nah, I have a TikTok account just so I can see stuff when people send it to me. But as far as using it on a daily basis and definitely mastering it, not this guy. Somebody was
Ken,
saying something.
the kids, the younger kids say that Facebook is for older people. So that's why you don't see many young kids, teenagers on Facebook because they say Facebook is for older people. So yes,
But
they gravitate more to Instagram and TikTok.
yeah, and Mr. Minor made another great point about social media actually being like a bullying pulpit for adults. Not necessarily as far as violence and things, but There are so many people right now that are stressed out because they see people on social media who are living these fake great lives, and then you got people who know that they can't keep up with these things. A guy was actually talking about that the other day, where people will go, people will take vacations. They take a vacation to Miami, and they take a million pictures while they're there. And basically all they did was left Friday, got there Friday evening, lived it up all day Saturday, caught the first plane out of there on Sunday, and was back home Sunday night to go back to work on Monday. But the simple fact that they were real creative with the photos, they had 6 or 7 different outfits. They, passed by the hotel. They did a screenshot of the hotel. They checked in at the most expensive hotel in town, went right across town and stayed at the Motel 6 the whole weekend. But people are so worried about the way that they look on social media. And the funny part about it is that the very people who say that they don't care what nobody think about them are the very ones that go overboard to make sure that people see them in a particular light. That's a whole nother sermon for another day. But at the end of the day, I really think that when we talk about regaining our communities and we talk about helping the kids in schools and things like that, I know a lot of the conversation that we talked about emphasize younger kids because a lot of these older criminals, they just done, they lost. There's really no saving a lot of these older people. In my opinion, if you are age 35 or older and you out there in the community causing havoc, you're just a lost cause, man. We can put you in some type of program to try to get you some education, maybe get you a trade, but as far as your mindset, I feel like you shot. Just being honest about it. Some of these kids, they still have a shot. A lot of these kids are just looking for attention. They're looking for an outlet. They're looking for some source of hope. And I feel that the parents have to be the front line for this. We need to stop putting all this emphasis on the teachers and putting all the weight on teachers to be able to manage and raise kids that you can't raise at home. You putting all the emphasis on teachers to be able to, basically to parent a kid without all the responsibilities. And we just, as parents, I think that the only way we're going to get our communities to get back where they need to go are for parents to start being parents again. We talked about that, where our parents didn't have nearly the resources that a lot of these parents have right now. And I think that back then they did a much better job of parenting. I'm not saying that parents don't do well now, but I think overall parents did a much better job back then. And I also think that they were much more open to taking the assistance that you guys say that a lot of the school districts offer. So that's my long-term solution. For us to get our communities back where they need to be, it's going to take the entire community to stand up, but it all begins with parents. Because if the schools offer help, if the churches offer help, if these independent agencies offer help, if law enforcement comes out and begins to police the communities like we say we want them to, but if the parents are not willing to change, or if they're not willing to accept the help, then there's really nothing that any of these outside entities can do is going to make a big enough impact for us to start gaining our communities back. And we talk about no snitching, but you got adults that live by the same principle. If they're not gonna say anything, if it's not my business to do anything, or if I say something, then the person that I talk to may retaliate against me. So I know for some situations it may take a little bit of bravery, a little bit of courage to actually step up and put these people on blast. But it's gotten to a point in time in our communities now where crime is so bad that we really have no other option but to start letting people know what we see. And if we know somebody that's doing something that is illegal, or somebody's doing something that's going to endanger the community, then we owe it to ourselves and to our community to say something. So we'll go one round of closing remarks, and I'll start with Shamika. Anything you want to add from an education perspective, from an administrative perspective, on things that you see, or remedies that you know of, or anything that would add some more information to this conversation when it comes to violence, specifically, with our youth?
I mean, just putting more safeguards out there. I mean, I know we can't control what what singers and rappers, this is their careers. This is what they do to make money. But as parents and community people in the community, we just need to establish more safeguards for our kids, and just instill in more morals. I mean, a lot of our ancestors and those family members who are gone on, I know that they wouldn't be able to live in a world like this today. And seeing everything that's going on, they just wouldn't understand it. I just think that, we're coming together, the things, everything that we've talked about tonight, putting all of that in place, educating kids, educating parents, and establishing a firm foundation when kids are born. Because, our kids come here smart. They know how to operate phones. They know how to operate computers. I see it firsthand with my nieces and nephews. They're being educated early. So my thing is, if they're learning these things early, the structure can start early on. So getting that structure early on and having parents to continue with the support, and, especially in schools, continue to support that kids upbringing with bringing back the village, allowing other people to have a say when your child is doing wrong, especially if you are not there. We know that parents have to work and can't be there all the time, can't be there 24/7. So allow someone else who have your child's best interest at heart to say something to steer that child in the right direction, instead of jumping to that child's defense, and upholding them in wrongdoing. So, pretty much everything that we said tonight could, stop the violence if everyone come together and be on the same accord with everything that we've talked about.
All right, man. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. Appreciate you for joining us tonight, Miss Andrews. Any closing remarks?
Just everything that we said tonight, and speaking from a parent and a mental health professional, I just challenge parents to pay more attention to their children. And as far as the schools, build partnerships with other cap other school districts, get just do some research on how we can better this situation. I'm just, when it comes around to, I'm an advocate for kids. I am, all that. That's my passion. I want to see my community where I grew up. I want better things. I want big and better things. I want to be able to look on the TV and say, that child is from Woodville. I want to be able to listen on the radio and say, that child is from Wilkinson County. I want to be able to see all of these things. But in order for that to happen, we have to create a structure. That's it.
I agree. Appreciate you for jumping on tonight. Ms. Williams, are you there?
Yes, Miss Williams is here.
Ms. Williams have found that one good spot where she got some good Wi-Fi at.
Yeah, that's some good Wi-Fi. You're right. But most of all, I would say to stop the violence in the communities and in the school is, I would definitely say, structure. We have to have that structure. The core piece to that is the parental involvement, getting parents out, holding our kids accountable for what they do, not upholding them in their wrong. And I see a lot of that today is, parents want to be friends instead of being parents. We need to educate ourselves more about what's going on in the community and in the schools, as parents. Like you say, with the social media, we have a lot of problems in the school district as far as the students being on Snapchat, the students getting on, these different media sources and talking about each other and downgrading each other, berating or whatever. And it's causing a conflict. So I think we have to have, as a parent, we need to get have a mechanism in place where our kids won't be able to get on these things. I have a child, and as a parent, I'm definitely monitoring at all times because I'm not going to say what my child won't do. Peer pressure is something. I mean, all of you guys know me from Wilkinson County, and everybody knows me. And I take that and I go with it. You know, I'm not going to say what my child won't do because I definitely told my mom when I got grown, never say what your kids won't do because we'll do a lot when we get behind your back. So we have to have those mechanisms in place to make sure, monitor what our kids are doing on social media or whatever. It's sad to say in the world today, as far as when it comes to rappers, television shows, different stuff that we're watching, sex sells, and everybody says it, you know. And everybody wants to be rich, but we have that 5 cent mentality. We don't think it through when we're out there, and so definitely the core of it is the parents, the parental involvement, getting out to the schoolhouse, seeing what our kids are doing, getting in the neighborhood, you know, supporting their kids. One thing that I heard is the support for the kids. And one thing that I'm going to speak on is, I mean, a lot of times what parents will do, they'll support the kid halfway through, but not all the way through. And what I mean by that is we'll follow them. Most of the parents will follow them from kindergarten all the way to 6th grade, and then we let their hand go. But the kid needs us from 7th grade through 12th grade. That kid needs us all the way through to college, you know, to monitor them, to be there for them, to be the moral support that they need, you know, because if they don't get it from us as a parent, they're going to get it from somewhere else. So that's a problem. We let them go and we feel like, okay, they're okay. I find that kids, just like you said earlier, the kids that come to school that have those adult problems. We have kids that are parents. They're parents at night. They take care of their kids, you know, take care of their siblings. They take care of their younger brothers and sisters. They have to feed them. They have to clothe them. You know, some of the parents are out working, but some of the parents are out doing other things besides taking care of the kids. So we definitely need the mental health inside our schools. We need the mental health inside out, you know, in the communities. So we need everybody to pull through. But at the core of everything, it starts with the parents.
I 100% agree. And I'm glad you were able to hop on at a couple points, man. You definitely had some great talking points. So, look, I appreciate you for jumping on while you were there. We gonna try this one
Yeah,
more
I
time.
enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Miss Veleka, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's better. I don't know if it was because multiple people were on that was having a problem, but yes, I got several points, but I'm gonna make it quick and short. Let me. What I noticed across the board too is generational curses. There are a lot of children and parents and grandparents in the same generation, and they think it's the norm.
Hmm.
It's a lot of girls that's pregnant, and they think it's normal to have a pregnant. They plan big old baby showers, etc., 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 knowing that it's gonna make their way hard. So my thing is, you have to hold the parent accountable hold a parent accountable, but also give them a harsh reality because a lot of parents have multiple children over and over and over, and they don't get it by the first, the second, and the third. Then they become overwhelmed and stressed out, which which causes the bright breakdown in the house as well. Then I'm going to my next point. I'm gonna try and make it quick and sweet because I had a lot to say, but I couldn't say it. Also too, these children get diagnoses. I know that from working in child protection before I came to the school system. They get diagnoses because we get the calls about won't give them their medicine. So they give them the medicine to calm down in the elementary schools, but when they get to high school, it's the ball is dropped. They know, and then they allow the child to decide to take the medication or not. I see it, and I can assess since I've been in the school system that some kids I know they need medication. Parent may give that decision up to them, and that's causing behavior problems and them to act out and causing fights at school as well because they're very impulsive. Um, and also too, like I said, they're very impulsive, and then these children are boldly saying, "Oh, I got a gun, Miss Bowsley. I got this and this and this." You know, and they're not lying. They're not lying, but you know. Oh, and exposure. Let me touch on that. I'm sorry if I'm hopping around. They're not
No, you
exposed.
good.
Some kids don't even know how to tie a tie. Haven't been to a restaurant with linen cloth. And when I tell them about other HBCUs, what is that? What is that? So there is lack of exposure, very lack. And I also experienced that with my caseload in foster care with foster children. It's lack of exposure. The parents not exposed, and they be like, "What is that? What is that?" Just to simple things that's necessary for life, or seeing that there's a bigger world out there that you can excel in and you can achieve in. But sometimes I've even seen kids. I work with kids all over Louisiana, all in New Orleans. Had When I worked in the juvenile system, had not left outside their neighborhood, even in New Orleans, until they got locked up. Had not been to Baton Rouge
Mhm.
until they got locked up. Because the kids down south, they send them up north, and up north they send them down south. Even in Shreveport, a lot of people don't touch on Shreveport. But Shreveport is what it do. So
Mhm.
Shreveport has always been dangerous. I mean, I hate to put that out there, but it's the truth because I worked
That's
all
true.
over Louisiana. But that in itself, um, the lack of exposure. So that in itself, and the parents hadn't been exposed. That causes problems and violence in the community as well. I mean, because you're not exposed and then that's all you know, and seeing what grandma do and grandpa do, and that's all you know. And I'm gonna say one more thing, and I'm gonna be done. The single parent home, the single parent twice, that's a double-edged sword because I've witnessed several two-parent households where I expect the dad, oh, he got daddy in the house, oh, he gonna get that act right. Oh, to be highly disappointed that the father, oh. So what good is to have a dad in the home where when I grew up, when a male came, my granddaddy came home because I was real about my grandparents. My granddaddy came home, everybody sit down, and when I be on my auntie house, when they husbands come home, everybody shake something. So when I expect a man to come to the school or to my office when I was at DCF, I expect, oh, okay, I'm gonna get the structure that I need. But it's absolutely the opposite. So that's just my spiel, and I do apologize for my connection. I'm not sure what happened, but that's my spiel, and that's coming from a social worker. I've been in the field for over 23 years at this point, and I worked in the juvenile system a long time. I worked in the child protection a long time. I just transitioned from child protection, and now I'm getting the educational side as a behavior interventionist.
Well, I
And I'm
appreciate
done.
the
Sorry for
the
long
times you
long
were
spiel.
able to chime in. I know areas seem to have had some type of internet problems tonight, so don't feel isolated. It seems like everybody had some issues, but the points were very well taken. Hopefully we can get together at a later date and maybe do something individually. But definitely would like to hear some of your talking points and appreciate you for jumping on tonight. All
You're
right.
welcome.
I know my commentary is probably gonna offend some people. I've been known to do that from time to time, but hey, it is what it is. I believe this firmly. I believe this firmly. I believe that the community rises or falls with the leadership of men. I believe that. I believe if you are a Christian and you follow the Bible, that that God gave man, dominion over the earth. He gave us that role of leadership. So the thing about leadership is that you can't lead when it's convenient. You can't lead and take responsibility when things are well, and when things are not going well, you find somebody to pass the buck to. If you're going to be a leader, you take that responsibility when things go well. You also try to find remedies when things don't go well. I firmly believe that in order for our communities to get back where they need to be, it's gonna fall with the leadership of men, starting inside of the household. I know right now that single parent households are on the rise, but that does not mean that men still can't have some say so in the way that their kids are being raised. And you find too many situations now that when the relationship ends, the level of inclusiveness with the man declines a little bit. Sometimes it's because of things that he does, maybe between situations between him and the mom. But I firmly believe that our communities are gonna be better when men start becoming men. when we start having men back into the schools, when we start having kids that know that their dads are actually involved in what goes on with their grades, that their dads are still a disciplinarian when it comes to things that they do when they step out of line. And Felicia touched on it a little while ago about not being surprised when your kids do stuff. My son is a straight A student. I mean, my son makes a B, you think it's the end of the world. And the first time I grabbed his cell phone and took a look inside of it, honestly, I was uncomfortable. I just felt funny, going behind him and looking inside his phone and stuff. And even though I didn't find anything that I saw that was alarming, you still see that there's a level of maturity with your kids with some of the conversations that they have that you would never suspect. So you can't just say that a kid won't do this or a kid won't do that, or that this kid is innocent, because even though they may be innocent at home, they go into a world that we know is everything but innocent. But my ultimate remedy is that I think that we as men, we have to get back on that horse and start being the men that, number one, our kids can emulate, and number two, that they know that when they misbehave or when they step out of line, that there are consequences for their actions. So for those of you who joined the stream tonight, I know we had some internet problems. I appreciate you all for joining. Those of you who chimed in, I appreciate you all for sticking with us, even though we had internet problems. I'm sure we'll probably have this conversation again at some point in the future. So at this point in time, we will go ahead and end the stream. Appreciate everybody for joining. Appreciate the panel. We hope everybody has a good night. For the panel, I want you guys to stay on for about 5 minutes after we end the live stream. So for those of you who are watching on YouTube and Facebook, we want to bid all of you a good night.